Somerville City Council to order. In accordance with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the City Council may be conducted via remote participation, and please note that video and audio of this meeting is being recorded and may be shown live on local access government channels and on the City of Somerville website and will be available for future review. Will the clerk please call the roll?
This is roll call. Councillor McLaughlin.
Here.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Wilson.
Present.
Councillor Said. Councillor Scott.
Present.
Councillor Mba. Councillor Burnley. Councillor Klingon.
Present.
Councillor Strezzo.
Present.
Councillor Pineda Neufeld.
Present.
Councillor Ewan Campen.
Here.
With 7 councillors present and 4 absent, we have a quorum.
May the record show that Councillor Davis is here. Thank you, Clerk. Pursuant to Rule 32, let it be known that this City Council salutes the flag of the United States of America, and let us recall our oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth to the best of our abilities and understanding. We begin our meetings with a moment of silence. Are there councillors wishing to say a few words about members of our community tonight? Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to remember Stanley Cody III, known to everyone as Chip Cody. He was the son of recently departed DPW Commissioner Stan Cody, brother of Russell Cody, who also works for the city. I grew up with Russell and Chip, growing up around the neighborhood, around Lexington Park. The thing I'll say about Chip and growing up in Somerville, it was very much like the laws of the jungle in the city sometimes. You know, you were allowed, if you were bigger than people and older than people, you were allowed to bully people and pick on them and kind of run the park, so to say. And Chip was older than everyone, and he was bigger than everyone, and he was never that type of guy. He was always a gentle person, always a funny guy, person to crack a joke and be friendly to people, always a very kind-hearted person, and I always appreciated that about him. And did not follow his father's footsteps in terms of entering political life or even life in Somerville politics or Somerville at all. But when I ran for office, he came out and held a sign for me, and I really appreciated that because we never discussed politics on any level. He cared deeply about people in recovery, as he was a person in recovery himself, and helped people assist them in addiction recovery, and I think that's something we had in common. But other than that, never really had political conversations. I felt like he was just there because we grew up together, and I really appreciated having him there to support me. So I'm very sad to hear this for his family, and I want to think of him tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, that will certainly come from the whole council. Okay. Everyone who's able, if you'll please rise for a moment of silence for the aforementioned individuals. Thank you all. Please be seated. All right, colleagues, so we have a few items that we're going to take out of order. We have a public hearing on a grant of location that we'll do first, just to get it out of the way. And then we have a citation for the Growing Center. After that, we're going to take up our Legislative Matters Committee, which has the Safe Streets Ordinance in it. There are members of the public here to speak on that. After that, we have some promotions in the Fire Department. And after that, we're receiving a presentation from the Water and Sewer Department on the water rates for the year, with no vote expected tonight, but there will be a presentation so that people have time over the next few days to come up with questions if they have any. With that, can the clerk please read the next item?
The next item is item 1.3, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of May 9th, 2024.
Seeing no discussion, those minutes are approved.
Item 2.1 is a citation by Councillor Strezzo commending the Community Growing Center for 30 years of service and commitment to green spaces.
Councillor Strezzo.
Thank you. The Growing Center. May I have those that are here at the Growing Center to step forward, please? 30 years in Somerville. Deeply in service to the Somerville community. And I think we need to commend the Growing Center's commitment to Somerville for demonstrating inclusiveness through a variety of programs, educational experiences, local history, culture, and thoughtful collaboration, and for encouraging wonder of the natural world around us. You were green and into open spaces before it was cool. And with that, I'd like to sponsor Brandon Wilson and Lisa Braccio. You have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you, through the chair, and thank you, Councilor Stresso. I am Lisa Brucolacchio, Board Vice President of the Friends of the Community Growing Center, and I've been honored to be involved since the founding of the Somerville Community Growing Center. Here with me this evening are Brandon Wilson, who's part of the early, and board members and supporters. So the Growing Center is a 1/4 acre of city-owned land near Union Square. It is managed and funded as an educational, cultural, urban garden park by the nonprofit Friends Group under license with the city. It is a manifestation of multiple partnerships over the years and a testament to evolution and regeneration, as these 30 years have seen so much change in the city. I've been asked to offer a glimpse into this unique Somerville Spaces history, so here goes, with apologies for all that I had to take out. The Growing Center sits on the site of the Southern Junior High School, demolished in the early 90s, with considerable debate over the future use of that site. Affordable housing was needed, but the need for more open space was also identified as a priority to balance Somerville's density. So it's 1993, and with the support of Brandon, the Somerville Pride Working Committee, a group of city and community folks, was working together to improve the image and appearance of Somerville. Kind of hard to believe now. While passing through a meeting in this building, then Mayor Capuano offered the upper sloped part of the site as a community garden, with a lower portion to support athletic activities. As the volunteer community garden coordinator at the time, I countered with the possibility of a city space that supported the recreational activity of gardening, kind of like a ball field supporting athletics, accessible to everyone rather than individuals, and with a focus on learning. Capuano hesitated a moment and said, "Give me a plan in a week." Within that week, a proposal was drafted, approved, neighbors, residents, groups got together to talk about how to use it. The Arts Council and planning members got local artists to do an all-day charrette to integrate the residents' and agencies' desires, resulting in a working design that could be built. The name Somerville Community Growing Center was decided upon, purposely having a double meaning, and the building began. So there were work days for volunteers of all ages to secure the sandy slope. That was in fall of 93. Early 94, talks with people about how to partner became a reality. There were trees planted, and the garden club got involved, paths were built. Walnut Street Center began a gardening program. Cummings School trained teachers and developed after-school programs. Festivals started, films, concerts, you have it, and gardening were happening in this urban green space. Partnering with the Somerville schools has been foundational. The now career and technical education built, cared for it, took care of it, helped start the maple syrup project, built the barn. Elementary students came for classes, clubs, and camps. Young kids started coming. Nonprofits collaborated on supporting immigrant youth, residents with disabilities, and offering outdoor educational opportunities for everyone. And this was Somerville, so the arts community got involved. There was a summer art program. There were arts grants. There were other parts of the city, and other communities started to notice something was happening in Somerville. So there were a few national and state awards, and there were some requests, like, how do we do this in our part of the world? Basically, we said, find out what your community needs and wants, and what resources exist to get started, and find a few champions along the way. So we have to mention Mayors Capuano, Gay, Curtone, and Ballantyne, as well as key city and school staff along the way. Thank you all. So there are long-term challenges of volunteers providing free services on a shoestring budget in a community with transitory populations while navigating city systems. That's very real. And so there have been many dedicated people along the way. Cannot name them all. Thank you all. 30 years have seen a lot of organizing shifts. We started with phone trees. Now we got social media, in person to Zoom, a budget of 5, then 10, now up to $75,000 a year. And the work is about staying true to the original mission while strategically evolving and hopefully learning along the way. Speaking of which, as the center was coming of age at 20, the Friends finally got nonprofit status, worked out a license agreement with the city, and ramped up liability insurance so we could have all these events safely. And thanks to our fiscal agents, and this also was a good time because the Growing Center was not on the city parks renovation schedule. It was kind of a thing of its own. So luckily, with the Community Preservation Act and the first round of that coming on board, we were poised to work with partners, actually apply and get not one, not two, but 3 grants to do the planning, the bids, and the actual construction. So between 2015 and 2018, a lot of renovation happened, and that allowed for the place to once again safely and sustainably serve the larger community. There were a lot of people who helped make that happen. We'll just skip over that, but just to know that last year there were 156 free public events and workshops alone. This is done by volunteers, and over 20 early childhood groups used the space and other groups as well. So in closing, one of the remarkable things about this space is how much variety is in one small site and how much can happen there. And this is somewhat wild corner of the city flourishes, is loved and nourished by collective energy, care, and generosity, which was recently evident as we had a successful 30 years, 30 weeks, $30,000 fundraising campaign, which was to help us increase capacity and increase impact and hire Bethany Burke as our first operations manager part-time, joining treasured consultant Paula Jordan, who manages the site, and children in nature programs. So a place like the Growing Center thrives in community involvement and love. And so in celebration of 30 years, we are having a fundraising party, fun only, on June 22nd, down the street. There'll be music, free ice cream with Somerville maple syrup, that rare thing, and fun. So we have little flyers around. We're also trying to, if you were part of this, and I see some people who were young when we started, and families have some connections, we're looking for photos, memories, et cetera, to help collect a story that covers many different perspectives and voices. And there's a lot more work to be done. So if you feel inclined to be part of this ongoing endeavor into the next 30 years and for more generations, in person or through financial support, please be in touch with us. In closing, I sincerely and humbly thank the council for recognition of the Growing Center milestone, and hope to see you at upcoming programs. So, thank you.
I'm certainly not going to try and outdo Lisa. She is an amazing person. She just gave you a lot of history. I've been part of this from the very start when I was planning director in the city of Somerville, started the Somerville Pride Committee when there was a downturn in the economy, and was frustrated by the fact that there was so little landscaping, so little requirements for landscaping in the city. Paired up with a lot of other smaller agencies at the time, formed the Somerville Pride Committee, of which Lisa was an integral member, as well as the Arts Council. The one person that I want to also highlight that I didn't hear, which was Ricky's Flower Market, which is still here, and he was instrumental in us getting going here and has always been a great community partner. I actually started the landscaping planter barrel program with him many years ago, for those of you that were here at that point. Some of those barrels are still out there. So I just want to highlight that because it was really a public-private partnership before that became in vogue. And so all along, it's been volunteers that have driven and managed under Lisa's stewardship, who is amazing, as I said. My own children grew up there, would be here tonight, except they have other things to do, but they're in the pictures. And I do hope that other people will go out there. If you don't know what we're talking about, come to the celebration that we're having. And if you feel like you want to contribute, either your time or any funds, we always love to have it. Thank you so much for this tonight.
Councilor Mba.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the good Councilor Strezzo for the initiative for putting this forward. These are two community members that exemplify the mission and vision of the Community Growing Center. They are really about community. I've known them also for years. 2 community members that I can never say no to them. You know, they've all brought me there in different capacity, and I'm truly grateful for your service to the community. So thank you so much.
And I hope you bring your children by.
Councillor Scott?
I will do that.
Thank you, Mr. President. While the Growing Center is in your ward, I will admit my children have grown up in that space, and it's really hard to comprehend the magic of it unless you're in it. And I could tell stories for hours about it. It's just such a magical part of so many childhoods. And, you know, as a testament to the strength and heart of the community and how people come together, but also I think a tribute to former Mayor Capuano, who just demonstrated with decisiveness and courage, you can make a change that lasts for decades. So thank you for all that you've done to keep this space, and you know, hopefully my grandkids will get to play in it someday. All right, thank you.
I just have to say a couple words. I mean, if I had to describe the Growing Center in one word, it is a miracle. I think there are so many people in Somerville who they imagine, oh, imagine what we could do if we got a little piece of land and we could turn it into a garden that little kids could play in and people of all ages could come. But you guys actually did it. And it's lasted for 30 years. It is such a monumental and extraordinary accomplishment. And so many people discovered the Growing Center thinking that it's their own little secret, but it's like a secret that everybody gets to share. And now I obviously have the great pleasure of getting to live like 100 feet away, and I have a 3-year-old, and I get to see what this place means to kids. And every day there are just battalions of children being brought there by daycare and being exposed to this just amazing, amazing place that you all have built. So thank you to everyone who has ever spent an afternoon volunteering, and to everything that you have done, and everyone on the city side who has supported it over the years. And I hope you all will stick around. There's going to be a break after the firefighter promotions, and we can take photos and do all that. Okay. Thank you all for being here, and congratulations. Now the fun part, public hearings for grants of location for utility work.
Item 3.1 is a grant of location from Eversource to install 102 feet of conduit in Revolution Drive from manhole 26211 to a point of pickup at the intersection of Revolution Drive and Assembly Square Drive.
This public hearing is open. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Jackie Duffy.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Very well.
NSTAR Electric would like to install approximately 102 feet of conduit in Revolution Drive. This work is necessary for a streetlight control box.
Is there anyone else to speak on this item? This public hearing is closed. Seeing no questions from the council, this item is approved.
Thank you. Have a nice night, everybody.
Item 3.2 is a grant of location from Cambridge Network Solutions to install 60 feet of conduit in Mystic Avenue from existing Eversource manhole 22835 to a proposed handhole and continuing to a point of pickup at utility pole 249/9 located near 75 Mystic Avenue.
Declare this public hearing open. Please.
Good evening, Jeff Harrington, Cambridge Network Solutions Construction. I want to thank you for allowing us to this petition. This petition is to provide continuity from an existing manhole system to a utility pole system. We've tried to lease conduit to that pole, but unfortunately there is not enough capacity to that utility pole, so we're asking to put this conduit in to satisfy that capacity.
Is there anyone else to speak on this item? We will close the public hearing. Seeing no questions from the council, that item is approved.
Item 3.3 is a grant of location from Cambridge Network Solutions to install 43 feet of conduit in Mystic Avenue from existing Eversource manhole 22834 to a proposed handhole and continuing to utility pole 249/4 located near 29 Mystic Avenue.
This public hearing is open. Anyone wishing to speak?
Good evening, Jeff Harrington again for the record, Cambridge Network Solutions Construction Manager. This is very similar as the other requests that we've tried to lease conduit. We've been successful except to the pole line. There is not enough capacity. This new construction will satisfy that capacity.
Is there anyone else to speak on this item? Public hearing is closed. Seeing no questions, that item is approved.
And that will bring us to the first item we're going to take out of order, which is item 6C, a report of the Committee on Legislative Matters, meeting on May 28th, 2024.
Councillor Davis.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Legislative Matters did meet on that date. We had two topics of discussion, primary topics of discussion. One was a proposed amendment to our so-called Safe Streets Ordinance. That's what we're going to get to in a minute here. The other discussion was of a surveillance technology impact report. We had a bunch of questions about that, so that stayed in committee, and we'll look forward to hearing some answers and feedback on that at a future meeting. The ordinance was a proposal from Councillor Burnley that we had discussed previously. You've heard about it in a previous report. There were some votes taken to tweak some language, just to fiddle with some defined terms and make sure there was no ambiguity. We did have a question, just to close the loop for anyone who was watching, there was a question about some language that had been proposed by the Solicitor's Office to essentially to state that the provisions of the ordinance, so the ordinance essentially requires implementation of the bike network plan, to put it simply. So this is already something that, the network plan is something the city has already said that we are planning on doing. This sort of just formalizes that, ordains it, if you will, into actually a city ordinance. Any expenditure by city government is subject to appropriation, meaning the mayor has to put money in the budget for it. That's just how the system works. The Solicitor's Office had proposed that we include some language saying that it was subject to appropriation. We sort of questioned whether that made sense or whether it was redundant or necessary. And the only reason I'm going to this level of detail is because we kind of left it unsettled at the meeting. I did follow up with the Solicitor's Office, and Assistant Solicitor Shapiro opined that it's fine to leave it out. I noted in the meeting that this wasn't in other ordinances. Since the meeting, I was corrected by our good legislative policy analyst, Brennan Salisbury, that there are some ordinances that actually have this reference in it, and there's some that don't. So the ambiguity that we were worried about creating actually already exists. But the takeaway is that no harm done by leaving it as was recommended by the committee, leaving that language out. The administration's fine with that. But I just wanted to sort of close that loop and correct the record as to our discussion there on that. So we did, the committee did recommend that the amendment to the ordinances be approved as amended by the committee. So that is what we have before us. I will, after this report, I will move to enroll and ordain those amendments. But for now, I request that the report be accepted as submitted.
On the committee report is accepted. That puts the ordinance before us.
It does indeed. So starting with on enrollment.
Oh, wait, before we vote, I think Councillor Burnley would like to discuss it, deliberate. Councillor Burnley.
Thank you. Through the chair, I am very glad to have made to this point without pulling out my hair. This is, as my colleagues may know, the longest ordinance process I've been through as a part of this body, and I can say that because, I count these things. And 637 days ago, a group of Somerville residents came together in Seven Hills Park, in my colleague from Ward 6's ward, to demand that this community do better, to demand that we enshrine the urgency to increase accessibility and safety for all road users into Somerville law by following in the footsteps of Cambridge, which had passed years before a Cambridge cyclist safety ordinance, but to go beyond what they did. And the ordinance that we have before us today is the culmination of years of hard work by advocates and heartache by this community that has suffered too many losses of residents, of neighbors, of friends and family to entirely unnecessary vehicular crashes. And that particular rally that we held in September of 2022 happened just a month after Stephen known as Steve Conley, an elderly resident of Somerville, passed away after crashing while on his bike and being hit by a car door. We understood at that rally, as we understand now, that thoughts and prayers are not enough, that as members of government, we have a precious and crucial duty to do as much as we can to enact the kind of life-saving measures, the kind of traffic calming measures that are necessary to ensure that every member of our community is safe when they leave their home. And I'm glad to say that this ordinance is a huge step forward in doing that it goes beyond what Cambridge has enshrined in law, that it requires us to move faster than Cambridge moved, and that it is my baby, but also the baby of many organizations that have contributed and informed it. So I do want to just take a moment to thank many different groups, some of whom are represented by folks here, before offering a few words from members of the public. First, I want to thank SAS, also known as Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets, for hosting that rally, for their years of advocacy on this front, as well as the Somerville Bicycle Advisory Committee, the Pedestrian and Transit Advisory Committee, the Cambridge Bicycle Safety Group, the Somerville Bicycle Safety Group, the Commission for Persons with Disabilities, the Union Square Main Streets, East Somerville Main Streets, and city staff from Mobility, Engineering, and DPW. I personally met with every one of these groups to let them know about these efforts, to hear their thoughts, and to try as much as I could, to bring in their perspective into this ordinance. And I think that we have before us something that the entire community, no matter what way they maneuver around Somerville, can be proud of. And with that, I'd like to just sponsor two members of the public to speak. First, Tig Pearson.
Welcome, Mr. Pearson.
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Tig. I live at 59 Monroe Street in Somerville. I'm the husband of Lise, the dad of Nate, Soraya, and Aoife. We're sitting back there. We mostly bike and walk to get around Somerville. It's good for your health.
Hi.
Good for the planet. It's a great way to meet your neighbors.
Oh, working.
And one Thursday morning, I think, I had dropped off the kids to school and preschool. I was on my way home. I was right in front of City Hall.
Did you get in touch with your eye doctor?
Biking with the traffic along Highland Avenue, and a driver decided they could make a quick left turn into Prescott Street.
Well, they must have someone
in the office. I could talk to you about how painful it was, or all the gravel.
Well, that's what Debbie said too.
Whatever. But what I really want you to understand is, I was really lucky not to die. Lisa's really lucky she has a
That
husband.
is the way the system.
My kids are really lucky they have a dad. And so many people, like you said, Councillor Burnley, we're not so lucky. So many of our community.
Well, Mom, that's the way the system works.
I guess I'm here for them too today, right? Because walking's not safe either. I went to do pick-up from preschool one day. I was walking along Highland Avenue. I was crossing Putnam Street, and a nurse who was on her way.
Well, go talk to the nurse where you are.
She blew through the stop sign and ran over the front of our stroller. I was lucky again.
And you can't talk to anyone there?
So I have to choose, right? We have to choose between our health and, our planet and our community.
You can't walk down there?
Our family. If we choose to walk or
You can't go to their office?
I'm appreciative of this ordinance because it fixes that choice.
And no one will take
It's not a choice
them.
we should have to make. We can have both. And, I think that in 10 years' time, we'll wonder why we let so many of our community die if we elect this ordinance, right? We'll wonder why we let it happen for so long. It's just obvious to me. So thank you for your time, and thank you all for coming and for your support. I really appreciate this.
Mother, I'm going to visit Deborah.
And I'd also like to sponsor to speak Susan Shane from the Cambridge Bicycle Safety Group.
Welcome.
Okay. Mom, I'll gotta call you back.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Cambridge Bicycle Safety.
Hi, Nikki.
We want to commend Somerville City Council for the Safe Streets
Nikki?
ordinance, for its ambitious pace of 29 bike lane miles over 7 years, which will
Matt?
exceed what we're doing in Cambridge, and for its inclusion of other street improvements that benefit pedestrians and people with disabilities.
Yeah, hold on, Matt.
As a car-free resident
Hi.
of Cambridge,
Nikki?
I frequently bike to Somerville to attend
Yes.
events like Porch Fest and Art Beat, and
Can you
also
hear
to
me,
visit
Nikki?
a diverse array of restaurants and
Hello?
other local businesses up here. Cambridge has seen
Nikki?
a great expansion of the bike lane network through the cycling safety
Matt?
ordinance, and with your passage of the Safe Streets ordinance, our
Is
region's
Nikki
bike lane
with
network
you?
will only grow stronger and more comprehensive. Given how interconnected our cities are, a comprehensive bike lane network that spans both Somerville and Cambridge will make cycling a more attractive
Okay,
and viable
thanks.
transportation option for residents and visitors alike. Just imagine being able to safely navigate everywhere across our cities for errands, for work, or leisure without feeling limited by piecemeal bike lane segments. This will encourage more people to choose cycling, thereby reducing traffic congestion and our carbon footprint. Furthermore, dedicated bike lanes separate cyclists from car traffic, which significantly reduces the risk and severity of crashes. This not only protects cyclists, but also fosters a more comfortable environment for everyone on the road, which will encourage more people to get outside and explore our two vibrant cities. So in conclusion, I urge you to approve this policy. A comprehensive bike lane network with clear deadlines will make Somerville a healthier, safer, and vibrant place for everyone. I hope that Somerville's ambitious plans will serve as an example to other cities in our region and beyond about what can be done with a strong vision and commitment to safety and accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Further deliberations. Councillor Scott.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of the volunteers that worked on this, and also to commend my colleague at large, who this is just another feather in the cap of what is already a very impressive legislative record over just your first 2 terms. So thank you for your dedication, your stick-to-itiveness, and for everybody who stuck with this process to get us here tonight. So I just can't wait to vote for it, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Mba.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was waiting to speak after the vote, but I guess, we
Now
just
is
want
speech time.
Sorry?
Speech time is now.
Yeah, no, it's like, I guess this is the way forward now, After hearing all this, if you're on the fence, you better tip towards voting in favor, of this ordinance. But I want to say thank you, Councilor Burnley. This takes a lot of boldness, your leadership. I was on I co-founded the Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets, SARS. I don't think that, I had the kind of courage to take on this, while I was on there. So, but thank you, for bringing this forward, and also for adhering to the cause of the advocates. So I guess the appreciation goes to the community advocates for advocating for this. I see like that. It's like my friend over there, like just doing the amazing things that you've done to push this forward. Thank you. So I'm just grateful to see that we prioritize the health and safety of our community over, anything else. Thanks.
Thank you. I have to say a couple words as well on this. I really do think a couple of years in the future, we are going to look back at this vote as having made an enormous difference in how safe it is to get around Somerville. This is, I think, the sort of work that really is going to make a difference. I'm incredibly appreciative for Councillor Burnley for how much work went into this, to all of the staff in the mobility department that worked on this. Mayor Valentine's administration supported this. Very thankful. This is an issue. Unfortunately, there is a weird amount of acrimony around bike lanes. I think it's completely misguided. I often hear, stereotypes that all cyclists are rich tech bros in Lycra going 30 miles an hour. First of all, those people deserve to live too, don't get me wrong, but just step outside. There are kids. There are elderly people. There are guys getting off work at Market Basket. This is just about keeping people safe as they try to get to and from their house, their friends' houses, their jobs. And I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful that in this community, the elected officials here see just the basic facts around how important safety is. Okay, I'll stop talking so we can vote.
All right, then. On enrollment of the amendment to Section 12-116 of the Code of Ordinances to create a Safe Streets Ordinance. Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Wilson.
Yes.
Counselor Said. Counselor Scott.
Yes.
Counselor Mba.
Yes, please.
Counselor Burnley.
Aye.
Counselor Klingon.
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo.
Yes.
Counselor Pineda-Neufeld.
Yes.
Counselor Ewing-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 counselors in favor and 1 absent, that item is enrolled. And on ordainment, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Wilson.
Yes.
Counselor Said. Counselor Scott.
Yes.
Counselor Mba.
Yes, please.
Counselor Burnley.
Aye.
Counselor Klingon.
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo.
Yes.
Counselor Pineda-Neufeld.
Yes.
Counselor Ewing-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 counselors in favor and 1 absent, that item is ordained.
Congratulations. Next item, please.
And the next item that we'll take out of order is item 6A, a report of the Committee on Confirmation of Appointments and Personnel Matters, meeting on June 11th, 2024.
Counselor Pineda-Neufeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our committee met this last Tuesday, June 11th, for 1 hour and 1 minute. 4 of the 5 members were present. We took up 4 appointments. We've started with approving the minutes, 2 appointments to the Board of Health, and 2 fire promotions. Our first appointment, we approved unanimously, 4 of the 5 members that were present, is Margaret Coit to the Board of Health. Margaret, just go back to her resume here, is a health researcher, has a extensive background in research, in program coordination. She's worked at Mathematica. Actually, that's where she is currently, Boston Children's Hospital, Boston Public Health Commission, Brigham and Women's. Her resume is deep in her commitment and work towards public health, and went through extensive questioning from the committee on different perspectives on our COVID response, perspectives on the roles of the Board of Health, and answered all the questions sufficiently. So that item was approved by 4 of the 5 members that were present, or 4 of the 5 members of the committee. 1 was absent. We then moved to Alyssa Dubois to the Board of Health as well. Alyssa similarly has a very impressive resume. Also has a research background, works currently at the Broad, and has done some really interesting work around environmental work and public health as well. Went through similar questions that were asked of Margaret about her perspective on public health, on the Board of Health in particular, on our COVID response as a city, and also specifically we went into rodent mitigation and kind of how to bring light to some of the responsibilities of landlords in the city through her position on the Board of Health. That item was also approved by the 4 members that were present at the time. We then went on to the 2 fire promotions. So we discussed Michael Finnegan, who was up for the position of fire lieutenant. Michael Finnegan is a Navy veteran, holds several technical rescue certifications, has been in the Somerville Fire Department for 17 years. We asked Lieutenant Finnegan, lots of questions about, how the role has changed, what he had learned from his past and previous experience. And that item was also approved unanimously by 4 of the 5 members that were present. And then we went on to the promotion of Matthew Kane to the position of fire lieutenant. Matthew Kane is a Marine veteran who's been with Somerville Fire Department since 2011. He has also been stationed at 4 of the 5 firehouses in the city and sort of talked about what that meant, sort of learning the different kind of cultures and different, peculiarities of the firehouses in the city all over Somerville. And that item was also approved by the 4 of the 5 members that were present. And with that, Mr. President, I'd like our committee report to be approved as submitted.
Discussion on the committee report. That is approved.
And with that, we have 2 fire promotions who will be sworn in this evening. All right. We can do them at the same time.
If anyone wants to take pictures, you're welcome to come right up.
Do you solemnly affirm that you will faithfully perform the duties incumbent on you as a fire lieutenant for the city of Somerville, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
All right, then you're going to sign a statement to that effect right here. Either of you can go first, but you'll just follow where your name is and sign right next to it on the dotted line. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And then you'll be right there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll be in recess for 10 minutes, colleagues. 1-minute warning. Colleagues, call this meeting back to order.
And the next item that we'll take out of order is item 8.3, an officer's communication from the Director of Water and Sewer, conveying the fiscal year 2025 water and sewer rate proposal.
Excellent. So, colleagues, I was just informed Director Raish, who was supposed to be here along with the Director of Water and Sewer, is unexpectedly ill and cannot be here. So if there are questions that Director Raish needs to weigh in on, they'll take note of those and get us answers as soon as possible. Director, welcome.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I know. I just got to click the button.
Excellent. There's something wrong with the microphone. Did it become unplugged?
Can you hear me now?
All right, we will work on getting the correct mics fixed, and in the meantime, we'll improvise. Thank you, Director.
All right. No, wrong name. Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate the assistance.
All right, Director, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to present the proposed fiscal year 2025 water and sewer rates. Before I get started, a couple things I wanted to mention. I want you to be rest assured that our crews and contractors have addressed the water leak emergencies we had today, and water has been restored at both locations we had to address. I would like to commend them for handling 2 leaks at the same time today and getting them both taken care of relatively quickly. So water has been restored to the city that was affected by these leaks earlier today. I would also like to express our sincerest gratitude to the council and ratepayers for all of your engagement and involvement through this process and other endeavors of the department. We appreciate the support and advocacy you, the councilors, have undertaken on behalf of Somerville residents. The proposal before you reflects what the city needs in order to deliver on the core services that our residents rely on every day. It also will allow us to improve our communication and educational outreach to our residents and ratepayers. We have heard from this council and ratepayers loud and clear, and we are taking any and all steps to mitigate adverse impacts to ratepayers. The fiscal year 25 proposed rates you will be presented tonight are consistent with what has been presented to this council previously, and we have done everything we can to propose the lowest rate increases possible to achieve our minimal level of service with the least impact on ratepayers. With that said, we are also thinking long-term and presenting rates that further our effort to avoid a situation where even higher increases are needed in the future. Our water and sewer bill payments received support our budget. And as many of you are familiar, the Water and Sewer Department is comprised of two enterprise accounts, one for water, one for sewer. These enterprise funds are designed to be self-sustaining and were created to shift the burden off of property taxes because of Proposition 2.5. So water and sewer revenues support only water and sewer related expenses. These expenses are comprised of MWRA fees, our assessments, as well as operational costs, ongoing maintenance and repairs, and infrastructure improvements on our aging infrastructure. Now, the MWRA charges us separately for water and sewer. Under the water, we've seen a 13% increase on the assessment over fiscal year '24. This still comprises a 50% of our water enterprise budget at $10.7 million. On the sewer side, we were fortunate enough to see a 2% decrease. However, this still comprises 55% of our sewer enterprise budget at $17.7 million. One of the other cost factors we noted was addressing the aging infrastructure. 90% of the infrastructure in the city is over 50 years old, with 70% of it being over 100 years old. To put it into perspective, the useful life expectancy for these types of systems is 50 years. And as evidenced by this gate valve that was recently removed through the Spring Hill project, you'll note the date on it is from 1867, thankfully exceeding its expected useful life. Some of the other things we're working to prevent is the flooding that we have all grown too familiar, unfortunately, with in the city. We have a number of projects that are helping us with all of this, from our lead service line replacement, where we are ahead of industry standard in the area with our progress, as well as many other projects you see here that are affecting the various wards and areas of the city, including our annual sewer improvement project, which is kicking off, or just has kicked off, for the Central Broadway area. Additionally, one of our most notable projects is the Poplar Street Pump Station, where it will provide immediate flood mitigation once it's online for the Union Square area and allow us to continue our sewer separation efforts that will benefit other areas such as Duck Village and Lincoln Park. This is accomplished by allowing us to divert our stormwater flow from going to the MWRA collection system when it is capacity and storing it offline, as well as diverting it to the MBTA's new infrastructure in accordance with our agreement to support the GLX project. Utilizing ARPA funding, a federal earmark, and stabilization funds, we are able to save ratepayers nearly $1 million a year in debt services over the next 30 years for this project. This brings me to what comprises our budget a little bit more specifically. First, this is our combined budget of the two together to keep it simple. Regarding our expenses, our first and most major expense that I've already mentioned is the MWRA. That is followed by our capital investments at 16% of our budget and debt services at another 16% of our budget. The debt services are utilized for long-term projects to fund these projects and our loans, which we have to repay. The remainder of our budget is comprised of personnel and maintenance. Now, please keep in mind, the MWRA capital investments, and debt services are all fixed. These are budget expenses that we can't negotiate or talk down. These are already set and determined. Meaning, 85% of our budget, or $45.2 million, is something we can't negotiate. We have a legal obligation to pay these, the MWRA, and then debt services, followed by contractual obligations on existing contracts. Now, regarding our income, our revenue, the vast majority is comprised of usage and base charges, the rates in the water and sewer bills. We also have service fees and income from interest and liens. Additionally, we were able to utilize some retained earnings to keep the rates as low as possible this year. You'll also note that you don't see grants or other non-financial sources on this revenue chart. That's because those are set aside and paid off directly to the respective projects to which they are assigned. So we don't consider them revenue. Now, why do we need a rate increase? Without this rate increase, we face a $3 million deficiency in water and sewer budgets. This would result in potentially having a hiring freeze, ceasing ongoing capital improvements that are already contracted and would cost the city to break these contracts and get out of them. Additionally, it would reduce preventative maintenance and repairs to our systems, as exemplified by our response time today on the 2 leaks we had, as well as delay the implementation of the ratepayer assistance initiatives or prospectively impacting the city's AAA bond rating. It would, without a doubt, affect and create substantial future increases because we have to continue to pay the MWRA in our debt, which we've already taken on. What we are proposing for adjustments is an average of 6% to every bill. This is on average and constituted by no change in base charges, water rates increasing by 9.5%, and sewer rates increasing by 5%. This would create an increase of approximately $21 to $22 per bill per household. We're looking at just over $60 a year per household. Again, this averages out to around 6%. This is an increase that can be easily offset by a household switching to a low-flow toilet or from a 3-gallon per minute shower head to a 2.5-gallon per minute one. And this even includes the cost of the fixture itself. For the record, I present the rates that we are proposing on the escalating tier structure that we currently have, both for residential and commercial. And just for reference, I have put up here how we compare to some of our neighboring communities. We are all MWRA communities facing these increases together. And comparing our existing rates with Medford and Malden, we are in line, if not less expensive than those communities. Now, we have heard from ratepayers and city council and appreciate everyone's involvement and engagement. We understand that this is a potential hardship for a number of residents, and we wouldn't raise these rates if we didn't have to. But we have to fulfill our legal obligations and continue our ongoing maintenance and services. With that, we are still continuing our policy of no water shutoffs for non-payment, and the city is continuing to offer the 25% discount for seniors and others through the assessor's office under clauses 17D and 41C. You also recently heard from myself and our consultant on some ratepayer assistance programs we are working on and hoping to implement by January 2025. We're also going to increase our outreach and communication to all residents. This includes crafting multi-language communications and working with the Council on Aging to help seniors with technology, including the new WaterScope program, which we have thanks to our new meters in the city. Speaking of which, Our meter replacement program is 90% complete. 90% of the meters in the city have been replaced to date. From this replacement, these unforeseen increases that people have experienced in their bills due to catch-up reads, we went through and see that that's affecting 6% of the ratepayers, or 6% of the bills that have gone out have seen a significant increase due to these catch-up reads. The Water and Sewer Department is currently reviewing and adjusting all bills that are disputed and brought before us, and we're recalculating charges where we can to align with the lowest possible tier in the earliest fiscal year rates applicable to that bill, and providing residents with lower bills. To date, we've adjusted both proactively those most significantly impacted, as well as those that have been disputed and brought to our attention. 170 of those, totaling a reduction of roughly $480,000 in ratepayers' bills. We implore anyone listening, anyone who has not already come forward and feels that they had a catch-up read that has affected them and caused the hardship, to bring these bills forward to us. Come into our offices at 17 Franny Road, give us a call, send us an email at water@somervillema.gov, and we will address these as best we can and as quickly as possible. I thank you for your time, and we'll entertain questions.
Thank you, Director. I see questions from Councilor Scott. But before I open it up for questions, I just want to emphasize, these have not been approved yet. If these were to be approved, looking at the average 8-unit building going up something like $60 a year, divided by 12, that's $5 a month. So if your landlord, if you are a tenant and your landlord tells you that your rent is going up $200 because of the water bills, they are lying to you. And I just want everyone to know that. And please contact your city councilor if you want some help disputing that. Councilor Scott.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I imagine this is going to be referred to Finance for discussion?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. This is going to be referred to Finance, and any questions that can't be answered tonight will be answered before that meeting.
Great. I have a couple, and hopefully we'll have the information by the time we get to Finance. Your personnel list isn't included in the budget this year, sir, so I can't check this information myself. How many SHMEO positions in the Water Department are currently filled?
We currently have 2 sewer SHMEO positions filled.
I'm sorry, sir. I asked about the Water Department.
Apologies, through the chair. The Water Department does not have any SHMEO positions filled.
All right. Mr. President, I believe that was the exact same situation as last year. And I refer you to my 45-minute diatribe last year about the increased contractor costs that lands on the city. I also had a question. I believe the threat was made that without passing these increases, it would delay the ratepayer assistance initiative. So I just, not for nothing, what happened to last year's, in last year's hearing, there was a lot of discussion about how we were moving forward on a ratepayer assistance program, and even a consultant would be hired to assist with it. So was that consultant hired? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through the chair, yes, the consultant was hired and was present and presented an update with myself to the council.
Oh, okay. And so we have the result of that report. Has the ratepayer assistance program been implemented then?
Through the chair, no, not as of today.
Well, I think that says just about all that it has to say, Mr. President. I'm going to hold the rest of my fire and see everybody in Finance.
Councilor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'm going to save most of my questions for Finance. I did have a question on the presentation that we just saw here. The comparison to other municipalities' rates, how, like, everyone tiers them a little bit differently, right? I assume everyone's using different cutoffs for those different tiers. I guess how are we averaging that? I'm just curious about the math that went into that.
Through the chair, applied their tiers and did the calculations based on their tiers and came up with the totals for the average number of units, which we show on the other slide that I had.
Through the presence, that's basically a weighted average that we're looking at there?
I did the calculations based on what was available on their websites for their tiers.
Okay. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Councillor Burnley.
Thank you. Through the chair, to the director. I guess I'm a bit confused about the sequencing here. You know, the last time you came before this body, you spoke about the restructuring of the fees and how that would put us in a more equitable position moving forward. As you will remember, although I think that I noted that I think this will be a painful transition in the short term, I thought that this was a generational change that hopefully would be in everyone's best interest in the long term. And yet, I feel like your comments today seem to imply that we have to first raise the rates before we can change the structure of the rates. And I guess I'm confused as to why this has to come before the overall fee restructuring.
Through the chair, the presenting a new rate structure is something we are still working on and hopeful to present to implement for January 2025. We have not yet finalized what this structure would look like. We're still trying to see what the various models present for different brackets of property types. However, this increase is to account for a lot of other increasing costs we're seeing, such as the MWRA, our increase in debt services amongst inflation and other contractual obligations. So we need these increases to be able to sustain and pay those.
So just a final follow-up on that, and then, like my colleagues, I'll shave more of the in-the-weeds questions for Finance Committee. I guess I'm curious if you have any sense of the connection between the rates you're proposing today and what will be proposed in January. Am I to believe that what we're seeing, if we were to approve what is before us today, that in January we're going to get a completely different set of fee structures, and that essentially we're going to be having a totally different system that we're going to be asked to approve in about 6 months?
Through the chair, I don't want to speculate what it would look like, as we're still running through different models and what it prospectively could look like, but we do anticipate coming before the body before the end of the year to present what the new structure would look like and the new rates, new dollar values for whatever structure we look at for per unit or based upon property type. There's a number of different avenues it could take that we mentioned at our presentation. So those are all still plausible, and we are still hopeful to get those to you before the end of the year to implement for January.
Thank you.
Councillor Mba.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the director, I guess you mentioned, first of all, I think most of these concerns, for me, primarily, it's folks that are on fixed income. You know, when these changes happen, they don't have any of this. And so they keep getting squeezed, and sooner or later, they will want to move away from the city. But I guess when you were talking about how they can do something to offset the change, like you said, they can change the system, but I didn't get it, how, so the mechanics of that change, I didn't understand. Can you speak to that?
Thank you. Through the chair, we continue to encourage water conservation, and so these are a couple of things that people can take on to increase their conservation of water and usage of water and how much they actually consume on a regular basis. So switching your toilet from one that is 5 gallons per flush to 3 gallons per flush makes a significant difference and adds up. A shower head, which is just unscrewing, taking off the old Teflon tape, putting on the new Teflon tape, and screwing the new one on. In most cases, I'm not saying that's for all cases, I'm not a plumber, but changing the shower head from a 3 gallon per minute one to a 2.5 gallon per minute one in 10 minutes shower saves you 5 gallons of water. By 2.5 people per household times 365 days in a year adds up to a significant decrease in water conservation. So we encourage that no matter what, but these increases equate to about reducing your shower by a 0.5 gallon per minute per household.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, just as a follow-up, I guess I probably wasn't super clear. Like, majority of our residents are renters. So it's like, with the landlords, were you expecting to kind of like provide this information to the landlords, or are you expecting, because ultimately everything will be transferred to the renters, so that's why I was kind of like imagining how you go about your outreach and education methodology to say, okay, yes, what you should do. Of course, they will probably not even do it. They will just pass on this cost to the renters. So I guess how are we going to ensure that they will actually, can renters actually, I guess, I don't think that they will do anything without the consent of the landlord, and sometimes they will not even think about this stuff. So that's where my little issue is.
Thank you, through the chair. These increases that we're proposing average $5 to $6 a month, so they should not significantly impact rents. These aren't substantial where the rents would have to increase for a $5 to $6 increase per month in the water usage rates. We are including reaching out to landlords, particularly those who sub-meter and charge their tenants directly for the water and sewer, to remind them of their requirements under the state law of what they have to provide to their tenants, that they have to have all low-flow fixtures, and many other things, which that information is available on our website, and we encourage tenants to look at that document under landlords and tenants, open it up and take a look to ensure that your landlord has certified that they are sub-metered correctly and they're not charging you any service fees. So that is part of our communications plan, to reach out to renters and inform them of their rights.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you. Excuse me, Mr. President. Thank you, through you. Clarifying question and then just follow-up comments. So the 6% rate increase amounts to about $3 million. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. So I'm not on the Finance Committee, but I've been doing this for the past several years. I expect the same dramatic showdown to happen that has happened every year on this item. So I just want to share some quick thoughts on this. City budget went up $20 million this year. We had a $78 million grant given to us in ARPA funds from the federal government. $1 million is still not spent. The other $77 million went to many other things besides addressing rate increases. So I'm just saying this now in anticipation of this dramatic showdown that, I'm not going to, the sky is falling talk is not going to work for me this year. I think that we have money available to at least get us through this year until we figure out how to offer ratepayer assistance that is already being discussed. And that's where I'm at. So I just want to put that out there that, when we get to the end of the budget, I hope people are prepared to go into overtime on it.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to just put some questions in so that when it gets to finance, they can be prepared. I would love to have a detailed accounting of exactly how much additional revenue these are going to bring in. I'd also like if the director could provide this council with the amounts paid to well, I think it's Zanelli Excavation over the first 3 quarters of FY24. And not for nothing, I would also like to know what happened. Last year, we were promised that there would be $1 million, $250,000 spent on a consultant, and $1 million in direct ratepayer assistance dispersed in FY24. So I would love to know what happened to that money, sir, when we get into committee. Thank you.
Excellent. Other questions? Councilor Klingon.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in anticipation also for a finance meeting, through you, Mr. President, I would like to know, just because to say that it's $5 a month, you know, that's encouraging, and it's sure it's factually true, but when you cumulatively, when you look at like what the last 5 years, you know, the jump in the rates over the last 5 years, I mean, I just like just so we can get a sense of like what the the exact sort of amount of pain put on the ratepayers has been, if you could just come with sort of the changes over the last, you know, 4 years, and then including this year. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Additional questions? All right. I'll just say that, oh, sorry, Councilor Trezzo.
It's okay. Mr. President, through you to Director Vidalis, as we prepare for the Finance Committee presentation of this, yes, I would also like to have these answers questions. And as I mentioned before, that we're already hearing from tenants that are signing their leases again, that the anticipated increase of water bills are being placed into their leases for the first time ever. And landlords are continuing to do this. So I'd like to know and have an answer of what date you would start to reach out to renters and landlords about informing them of their rights and the water rate increases and what that would look like. I am assuming that the answer would not be when we meet again next year, that it's on its way. So I'd like to get that on record. This is a death by paper cut situation when we talk about rate increases, and those just barely making it in Somerville. Yeah, it seems it's only a drop of pennies to some people, but for some people just barely clinging on to be able to stay in this community, it's everything. And we talk about inflation. We talk about how grocery prices have increased 25% in the past 2 years. This is a lot of money for a lot of people, especially for seniors on fixed incomes. And as I mentioned before, and again, that some of our ratepayer assistance programs help less than 100 people in the whole city. So I'm extraordinarily frustrated at this point that we're still having these conversations, and I need answers and just timelines of when that will be happening, and then actually getting to the other side and surpassing those timelines with concrete answers and solutions to this. I am extraordinarily frustrated with this. I am so worried about some of our residents being able to stay in our city because of this being one tiny thing to some people, but a massive thing to many. Thank you.
Sir Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. Hopefully, I'm going to hope Director Bean will be there with us also when we bring this up in finance, because as you're hearing, there are a lot of questions here about basically the overall funding formula that we're doing for our water and sewer departments. So it goes way beyond just the rates for FY25 here. So I see Director Bean nodding. That's good news. Hopefully, Director Bean comes ready to talk about options that are out there. You know, obviously this is the one that the administration has chosen to put before us, but obviously there are multiple ways that you can choose to fund this, and we're going to have a lot of questions about that. Thanks.
Thank you all. This item is referred to Finance, and I just want to make a note. If there are seniors on a fixed income listening to this, please contact the Water Department. There are programs in place to help income-eligible seniors get reductions on your bills, and I want to make sure that everyone has that information. Director.
Clarification, Chair. Contact the assessor's office.
Thank you. Please contact the assessor's office. This information is also all on the water and sewer website.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes, there were some items that Director Raish was going to address that are time-only extensions of contracts that we wanted. Why don't we take them up, see if there are questions? These are requested for immediate acceptance tonight, colleagues.
So the next item the council will take out of order then is item 7.5, a request of the mayor requesting approval of a time-only contract extension of 4 months for PMA LLC for owners project manager services for the Somerville High School project.
Unfortunately, Director Raish is ill. I understand that the administration has talked to you, Councilor Wilson.
Mr. President, yeah, there are 3 time-only extensions here that the administration has requested that we take up tonight just because of urgency with the end of the fiscal year looming here.
Are there any questions that would affect a councilor's vote on these? Seeing none, those items are approved.
So 7.6 and 7.7 will take the reading.
As well, yes.
And that will return us then to the regular order of business, which is item 4.1, in order by Councilor Klingon, that the Director of Mobility daylight the corner of Maple Avenue and School Street.
Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just send to Traffic and Parking.
Sent to Traffic and Parking, and Councilor Wilson would like to co-sponsor.
Item 4.2 is an order by Councilor Klingon that the Director of Public Space and Urban Forestry provide this council's Committee on Equity, Gender, Seniors, Families, and Vulnerable Populations with an update on the Inclusive Playground Swing project being worked on in collaboration with parent advocates.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, just to send to Gender, Equity, and Vulnerable Families.
Excellent. I'd like to co-sponsor this as well, and the item is referred to the Committee on Equity.
Item 4.3 is a resolution by Councilor Klingon that the administration provide this council with an up-to-date report on the financial activity of the Handicapped Parking Violation Fees Fund.
Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, just send this to Finance.
This item is referred to the Committee on Finance.
Item 4.4 is a resolution by Councilors Klingon, Wilson, and Strezzo that the administration hold a community meeting within the next 30 days to address the impacts of the missing United States Postal Service mail and the overall lack of mail delivery in various parts of Somerville.
Councilor Pineda-Neufeld would like to sign on. Councilor Klingon, as would Councilor Burnley and Councilor Mba.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you may or may not know, or many of you know, there's been a few news reports that there has been a severe lack of mail delivery in certain parts here. It's all over the city. It's actually all over the region and probably even further out. But specifically hard hit is. Well, one of the reasons given by the post office is just a labor shortage, which is understandable to some degree. I think that there's discussion to be had around, with the post office around what they can do. I've done a lot of research about. They do the postal letter carriers are on they negotiate nationally, but I do know that in certain areas like Hawaii, where the cost of living is extremely high, they have a different rate per hour for letter carriers, and I think it's time that the post office consider that around places like Massachusetts, because $20 and something dollars, and $21 I'll just say is it's extremely low. You can pretty much make that a target, not work in the elements. So in terms of like the overall strategy for the post office, I think that those are conversations that need to be had, but locally, and the impact that's had here on our senior population has been extremely hardly hit, and particularly in the Mystic View Apartments, as well as 10 Hills, and just the whole Winter Hill area. We go weeks without mail, and and it's been an interesting process learning about this, hearing, and just how trivial it is to some people. When you talk about the USPS, a lot of people don't really rely on it as much anymore. But I would even caution them to say that there are government institutions you can get yourself in trouble with if you don't pay attention to your mail, which is jury duty, for one. The RMV, these are all institutions that still use the USPS. But I wanted to speak to the quality of life issues and the lack of mail delivery for some of these folks who are missing medications, correspondence with loved ones. We've heard so many stories. Symphony tickets have gone missing. Luckily, in that case, the Symphony Hall was able to reproduce the tickets based on the credit card used. But I could go on and on about this issue. It's something that's really been affecting many of my constituents. And so it is being addressed to some degree. I've been in touch with Senator Markey's office, Congresswoman Presley's office, and of course the USPS. But I don't want to just... I want to emphasize one point. So a lot of these folks have what's called informed delivery. They know what mail has been scanned in Chelsea and what mail has made it to them. So even as they get some fill-ins, it's still not a regular route. They're down like 12 routes altogether. Anyway, I'll just wrap up by saying there are still people that they know they have 60 pieces of mail missing that have never showed up. And the post office is telling us that they actually are caught up. So we also know the post office is also telling their letter carriers that are telling us that they're investigating the missing mail. So I just want to have a meeting because I think that people feel really ignored, and I brought it up to the administration. I brought it up to the mayors directly as far as the sentiments that are out there and the feelings that people that that are being ignored. So I think it's really important to keep the light on this issue, and so I'm asking that there's a community meeting, a public meeting regarding this issue, and inviting the USPS or pertinent parties to this meeting to address this issue so that people feel as though they're being recognized and heard on this issue. As I said, it's extremely serious situation when you consider the amount of mail that's missing and where that mail is now. Nobody seems to know. So thank you for indulging me in that, and I hope that the city will follow through on this. I guess for a committee, you could send it to Housing and Community Development just to kind of keep tabs on it, but my hope is that a meeting is in the works or can be in the works soon, and hopefully we can just keep the pressure on the USPS to make sure, because I don't want to get complacent and then next thing you know, when I say we've gone a week, 2 weeks, like a week, we'll go a week and then we'll get mail for like 1 or 2 days and then we'll go like another entire week. Things like this keep happening, and people just want to know where their mail is. People are missing important documents that were supposed to come in the mail. So thank you. And again, we also have elections coming up, and there's all concerns about the ballots coming back and forth. So I think we should all really take this issue seriously. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That item is referred to the Committee on Housing and Community Development. Councillor Strezzo.
Thank you. I'm going to commend Councillor Klingon on this, keeping the ball rolling in the conversation, continuing on this, because yes, it is absolutely impacting our residents' lives. I heard in one instance, after the last time we discussed this in council, that they just had to tell me that they had a court summons from their ex-husband who was abusive, and they missed the court date because the mail arrived weeks later. And a dangerous situation wasn't able to be handled. They weren't able to be there at the event, and that's that's devastating. That very negatively impacts people's lives. Meanwhile, we're still sticking things in the mail, the city is, and anticipating and expecting that our residents are getting their bills on time. And fees, late fees, that's right. And here we go talking about water bills still with the interest rates. We're sending out water bills in the mail, assuming that everyone's receiving them on time and sticking them back in the mail on time, because some people do write checks and still stick them in the mail and anticipate they're arriving on time when they give plenty of time to do so. This is negatively impacting people's lives, and it's not going away yet. And good point, Councillor Klingon, Mr. President, through you to Councillor Klingon, about voting, which is just about to happen. And there's a preliminary and a primary happening, and voting through mail is now it's now a thing. This is now the future of voting. This is where we are. So how is that exactly going to impact voting in September? And how should we be planning and talking about that? Because we're in June, and September and November will come before a blink of the eye. I'm glad we're going to discuss this in committee. And I'm also, when I talked about this, of what this order could look like, or resolution could look like, I also want to mention that, hoping that the administration will work in tandem with us to create a communication plan for residents of how we can be documenting or talking about this, or getting this information out to the community, because the situations are so precarious and intricate that we need to be figuring out how we're going to do what we can at a local level, aside what federal and state can do about it, predominantly federal, and how it's going to affect our community and how we can fix that. That's it.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. I want to thank Councillor Klingon for this order and for all his work on this. I know from talking to him just how much he has done on this one. It's a massive issue and a real source of anxiety for a lot of folks in our community, particularly seniors, who depend on the Postal Service for delivering vital medications, like we heard, election ballots, income, their checks, bills. Despite this being a federal issue, we're really feeling this here locally. And to his credit, rather than just referring people to our congressional delegation, Councillor Klingon really dug in on this. I know, talked to folks at the Winter Hill Post Office, talked to folks at the Annex, and has actually managed to get some results here in my neighborhood in Ward 4, where folks are now starting to see mail show up. So kudos for if people are watching this and thinking, why are they talking about a federal issue? This is a case where you can actually get results locally with some hard work. So I want to just commend our colleague from Ward 4. And as far as this order, it'd be great to just figure out some idea of the scope of this problem, and then just amplify resident voices to our congressional delegation and to the powers that be within the Postal Service. Thanks.
Councillor Klingon.
Mr. President, don't you have a story about mail? I know I heard you ask a question just last night at the finance meeting, the night before, to the parking control director of traffic and parking, and about residents not getting their parking passes. Just another example of how the mail is, really. And I guess we could give an update on what the actual resolution to that was, right?
New information has come to light that I will discuss. We'll see how much the mail is to blame for that. Okay, next item, please.
Item 4.5 is an order by Councilors Wilson and McLaughlin that the Executive Director of the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development update this council on the possibility of receiving additional federal financing for transit-oriented development through the Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act initiative and the potential eligibility of projects in Somerville.
Councilor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. President. I took part in a really fascinating discussion on workforce housing last week. I want to thank OSPCD and Economic Development specifically for hosting this gathering right here in this room. It was enlightening. Much of the meeting dealt with what's called 6320. It's written out as 63-20, refers to basically the IRS determination, the decision that was made that basically opened up a really fascinating possibility for a public-private partnership mechanism, we'll call it, that some other communities have been using really creatively to create middle-class affordable housing. We also learned about something called TIFIA 49. It's a federal financing tool for transit-oriented development that it seemed like could potentially really prove helpful here in Somerville, just given some of the challenges we've heard about recently, where projects that have been permitted in our city are just sitting there stalled out or on hold because of financing issues. So this is a program that's meant to sort of close that gap and make these projects happen through the federal government for transit-oriented development, which in our city, a huge chunk of what we're looking to do is going to be transit-oriented development. I want to thank Ted Fields at Economic Development for subsequently reminding me that we should also include the 6320 and something called RRIF in this conversation as well. So I'll move to amend the order to also include IRS 63-20 corporation financing and railroad rehabilitation and improvement financing. That's the RRIF. And I'll ask that this be sent to land use for discussion.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Wilson, for bringing this up. This is yet another opportunity we have to address housing in Somerville and in Massachusetts, address transit-oriented housing specifically. We have this new federal program. We have the MBTA Communities Act, which requires housing by transit. We have the pending House bill, the housing bill coming out of the House in Massachusetts, which will hopefully pass the Senate and the governor's office. All gravitating towards this idea of building housing by transit. There's many opportunities coalescing. And in my mind, as the chair of land use and as someone on the city council that has power over zoning, there's an obvious answer to a lot of this. And I know the city is working on it, but I would love to see that pace increased. And now that we have a lot of momentum and potential money behind this, I do think that this should become a much bigger priority in the city. So I'm happy to take it up in the Land Use Committee, and hopefully we can do something about it soon.
Excellent. That item is referred to land use.
The next item is item 5.1, a request of the mayor requesting approval of a conveyance and grant of easement for Leonard Grimes Park at 31 Tufts Street.
All right, colleagues, just as a reminder, this was a very kind of standard item that normally would go to finance, but because we're in budget, they just had it sit on the table. And if anyone had any questions, we were advised to reach out. Did anybody have any questions before we approve this? Or vote on it, I should say? Councilor Burnley.
Thank you. Through the chair, I love this park. It's really cute. Every time I go by there, it's raining, but it is a small little pocket park. Only about 5 minutes from the home of its namesake, Leonard Grimes, who was an abolitionist who lived in Somerville, who took part in the Underground Railroad and lived in East Somerville in 1870, and you can find his name on the census. So very excited for that ribbon cutting, and I hope we can get it done soon. Thank you.
Seeing no discussion, that item is approved. We need a roll call.
On that item, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said. Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Aye.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Pineda-Neufeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 councilors in favor and 1 absent, that item is approved.
Excellent.
And the next item is item 6B, a report of the Committee on Housing and Community Development, meeting on June 11th, 2024.
Councilor Strezzo.
Okay, so we met, let me just get my notes in order here. We met Tuesday, June 11th. All councilors were in attendance. We approved the proposed 2024 to 2028 Department of Housing and Urban Development 5-year consolidated plan. It is attached to the agenda item. Colleagues, I do suggest you look over these almost 200 pages. It is a great read, and So we approved that, and then we also talked about Skilton Avenue, Councillor Klingen's 2 items on that, and that is right near one of our dog parks, and trying to get, it is a city-owned building, by the way. If you didn't know, we just had a quick conversation of what the city could do with that, and getting the area around it back in order. So with that, I ask that these minutes be approved as submitted.
Excellent. Seeing no discussion, that committee report is approved.
Item 6D is a report of the Committee on Public Health and Public Safety, meeting on June 5th, 2024.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Up. Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We met at that time. Myself, Councilor Davis, were in attendance. The main item we took up, as has been pretty consistent, is a discussion of homelessness in Somerville. This meeting particularly focused on the warming center at the Armory. We had a presentation from some involved citizens who did their own impromptu survey of the use of the warming center and its pros and cons. Presented some data that you can find in the committee report. Some highlights include, frustration with the lack of communication from the city and safety concerns from the Women's Center, desire for an East Somerville location for a Women's Center in the future, ambiguity about future locations, people serviced by the amenities. There were positives that people appreciated the food and the warmth, did not particularly like getting kicked out early in the morning, and there was the highlight to me was a ambiguity about who made this decision to begin with and the process for selecting the site. So this was a question that I raised, and nobody had an answer at that point, and they said they'd get back to me, and I have not heard back yet. So hopefully we will understand. I asked basically what other sites were considered, why were those sites not acceptable, and who basically made the final decision to send the Women's Center to the Armory. Questions to be answered in the future. As well as the city will be doing their own independent report on the Women's Center and the pros and cons that has not come out yet. So that item will remain in committee as it has been for the past few months. And then we also just discussed an item discussing the prioritization of deployment of masks and tests to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Director Karen Carroll from Health and Human Services were there for both of these items. And she said that the city has a supply. They have a supply of supplies, but is seeing a significant reduction in demand. If any changes are made by the state, she will notify the committee, but there's no indication that the state will be providing masks or test kits in the future. So we mark this as work complete in the hopes of having more information in the future. So I submit the committee report to be accepted.
Excellent. That committee report is approved.
Item 6E is a report of the Special Committee on School Building Facilities and Maintenance, meeting on May 29th, 2024.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was unable to attend this particular meeting, so my good vice chair took the gavel, and I'll pass it to him for any report.
Councillor Klingen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, yes, we met Wednesday, May 29th, promptly at 6:01 p.m. Councillor Davis was unable to attend. It was myself and others present were, myself and Councillor Said was remote. Others present were school committee member Laren Baton, Dr. Sarah Phillips, Laura Baton, Ruben Carmona, Jill Lathan, Rich Raish, many people were in attendance. We discussed a number of matters, mainly the first, the standing order that we have in committee, which is that the administration provide the committee on an update on the MSBA process for the Winter Hill and the Brown schools. Director Raish reported that the constitution of the school building committee has been completed and that the committee will guide the project from design to construction. 4 seats were filled and an additional 2 seats were added for community input. The list has been submitted to the school building committee for approval. The next step to be completed is the educational profile. Work is progressing, and a final draft will be ready Friday, May 31st, and submitted to the MSBA on Monday, June 3rd. The MSBA will review the document and schedule meetings for June and July. Maintenance and the capital planning for the schools is due in August. So that's the update on that. Some questions were asked just regarding the two different bodies, the one being the MSBA Building Committee, which is constituted of a number of members, and then questions were asked about the additional the committee on, the task force rather, I'm sorry, the school building task force that is being comprised of a number of residents and officials to consider the future of the two schools and whether or not, what to do moving forward. So on whether or not there'll be a school at 115 or Sycamore or one single school building, that'll be what they're charged with. Other orders were just orders regarding different things around the schools, including rodents in the Edgerly, a gas situation with the West Somerville where they weren't able to use the gas burners all year. Some questions were asked about that, whether or not it was why it took the entire year for this to be resolved. The understanding is that's just protocol for the fire department. There was a question asked about the Brown School and an outlet on the outside of the school, as well as a water source from the school. It seemed like one of those things where it was being made to be. It was made to be sort of a big deal, like it could cost a lot of money. It wasn't feasible. The question was asked, well, I think they're just talking about an outlet on the outside of the school, or and a spigot for water. Could that be drilled and the pipes run? And there was concern about drilling into the school, but that is being considered and looked into, as are the other number of items that were brought forward. Including the rodent issue. And so we had a great discussion about all of those things. There seems to be moving progress on all fronts, and I ask that this committee report be accepted as submitted.
Excellent. That committee report is approved.
Item 7.1 is a request of the mayor, requesting ordainment of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances to add sections 8-375 through 8-381 to promote and enforce safer construction practices.
That item is referred to the Committee of Legislative Matters.
Mr. President, I'll move to waive the readings of items 7.2 to 7.4, 7.8 to 7.15, and 10.7. Ask those be sent to Finance.
Those items are referred to Finance.
Mr. President, I'd like to waive the readings of 7.16, 7.17, and refer them to confirmation of appointments, please.
Those items are referred to confirmation of appointments.
Item 7.18 is a request of the mayor, requesting confirmation of the appointment of Jacob Luria to the Municipal Job Creation and Retention Trust Fund Board of Trustees.
Seeing no discussion, that item is approved.
Item 7.19 is a request of the mayor, requesting approval of the Surveillance Technology Impact Report for use of an unmanned aerial system at the 2024 Somerville Police Department Junior Police Academy.
That item is referred to Legislative Matters.
Item 7.20 is a communication of the mayor proclaiming the week of May 12th through May 19th, 2024 to be Taiwanese American Heritage Week.
Excellent. That item is placed on file.
Item 7.21 is a communication of the mayor proclaiming that Saturday, June 22nd, 2024 is Arbor Day in the city of Somerville.
I think to do a proclamation, you should have to have a real, person proclaiming.
Scroll.
Yeah. That item is placed on file.
Item 8.1 is an officer's communication from the Director of the Office of Sustainability and Environment conveying information regarding item 24-0575, a grant from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center.
That item is placed on file.
Item 8.2 is an officer's communication from the Planning Board conveying recommendations for item 24-0416.
That item is placed on file with a copy to Land Use.
Item 9.1.
Councillor Burnley.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd like to waive the readings of and move for approval for this item, 9.1 through 9.11, as well as 9.14 through 9.21.
Those items are approved. Councilor McLaughlin on those items.
Well, I guess we're going to read 9.12 and 13, so I'll wait.
Those items are approved, that Councilor Burnley mentioned. Next item, please.
Item 9.12 is a public event from the Veterans Department for PFC John J. Hayden Jr. Hero Square dedication on June 1st from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
On this item, Councilor McLaughlin. Colleagues, these events have happened. Yes. This is to formalize the approval process. This happens every once in a while, that an event is not submitted in time and happens and then comes to us. Are there questions on the item? Councilor Burnley.
I was going to waive the reading of this item and the next and ask that they be placed on file.
We've already read 912. Councilor McLaughlin.
On the item, Mr. President, I know it happens sometimes, but these two in particular were interesting to me, so I had to note that the event has already passed. Thank you.
Yes. And 913, we can waive the reading, and we'll place those both on file.
Item 9.22 is a public communication from the Mass Department of Transportation conveying the alteration of a location of a section of state highway.
That item is placed on file.
Item 9.23 is a public communication from Emily Duquette submitting comments regarding item 24-0641, a zoning map amendment for the YMCA.
That item is placed on file with a copy of the land use.
Item 9.24 is a public communication from 13 individuals, including 9 residents, submitting comments regarding items 24-0680 and 24-0679, a zoning map and zoning text amendment to create the Summer Nova Innovation Sub-Area.
Those items are placed on file with a copy of the land use.
Item 10.1 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Commissioner of Public Works replace the trash barrel on Broadway and MacArthur Street.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. We can start this meeting now. Just very quick, I'm just going to move to approve this item, but I did want to point out that this was a trash barrel that was missing, and it got brought to my attention because a constituent said that people are still dumping trash there. Talked to the director of DPW, said that they removed it because people are using it excessively. And this just isn't a good answer for me because I'm seeing a reduction in trash pickup when I've been asking for an increase in trash pickup. I'd like more trash barrels. If someone is illegally dumping, I would prefer that person to get fined and have this addressed than to just remove a trash barrel because people are still dumping their trash there. Move to approve.
Item 10.2 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Inspectional Services provide the Ward 1 City Councilor with any tickets and fines associated with the Home Depot, Circuit City, and the surrounding area in the past 10 years.
Can we read the next item as well?
Item 10.3 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Inspectional Services inspect the Home Depot, Circuit City, and surrounding area for code violations and report back to the Ward 1 City Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like this referred to Public Health and Safety, and this is basically another example of absentee properties, negligent use, trash, things like this. We had issues a few months ago with car pickups, things like this. One of them is an absentee landlord property. The other is a very well-used landlord, so I'd like to know what is being done to address these. Public Health and Safety.
Item 10.4 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Inspectional Services provide the Ward 1 City Councilor with a list of all ISD tickets issued in Ward 1 on May 6th, 2024.
Yes, I'd like this referred to Public Health and Safety as well. And I would just move to approve it because all I really need is the information. I don't need a conversation. I don't need a big to-do about it. Just send me the data if anyone in the mayor's office is listening right now, so we can avoid having a department head come and tell me this when you can look at the computer and just send it to me. Send to Public Health and Safety, please.
That item is referred to Public Health and Public Safety.
Item 10.5 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Parking place slow children and not a through street signs on Alston Street by the corner of Cross Street.
Traffic and parking, please.
That item is referred to Traffic and Parking.
Item 10.6 is an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Parking discuss the policy around restricted parking signs during construction and how to limit negative impacts in the community.
Councilor McLaughlin.
To comment on this, Mr. President, so on the state streets or the Aves or the nunnery grounds, whatever generation you're from, refers to it differently. There was a lot of road work done recently and signs put up for no parking during these hours during times where there was really no work being done. And I come to learn that actually the city's policy is to allow the contractor themselves to fill out the no parking signs and put them up, which seems like, you know, I think the city might respect people's parking space more than the contractor who just wants as wide a berth as possible to address this. So I'm interested if we can redevelop this policy and just have these be more accurate times so that people don't lose their on-street parking as little as possible. Traffic and parking, please.
That item is referred to traffic and parking.
Item 10.8 is a public communication from Alexander Matthews submitting comments regarding rent control.
That item is placed on file.
Item 10.9 is a public communication from Susan Lee submitting comments regarding items 24-0680 and 24-0679, a zoning map and zoning text amendment to create the Summer Nova Innovation Sub-area.
We'll place this on file with a copy to land use.
Item 10.10 is a public communication from Karen Thurston submitting comments regarding parking.
That item is placed on file.
And that brings us to the end of our agenda, Mr. President.
Are there any late items?
There are no further items before the council.
Mr. President, I have a late item, which is it is Councilor Davis's birthday today.
Hey.
Ripe old age of 22.
Happy birthday, Councilor Davis. That's great. The item is rejected. No, it is approved. We're all set? We are adjourned, colleagues.